She adjusted her skirt, the thick fabric straining slightly against her wide thighs, silently praying her boss wouldn't notice her checking the clock. But Dominic Rossi noticed everything. As she reached for her coat, his heavy hand slammed against the mahogany door, trapping her. "Who are you planning to kiss after work?" Alex Hayes took up space, and she knew it. In the sleek, glass-paneled corporate world of Rossi Logistics in downtown Chicago, where the HR department seemed entirely staffed by women who survived on iced lattes and celery sticks, Alex was an anomaly. She was a size 22, carrying 240 pounds of soft, unapologetic curves beneath impeccably tailored navy blazers and wide-leg trousers. She had long ago stopped trying to shrink herself for the comfort of others. Instead, she made herself indispensable. For 3 years, Alex had been the executive assistant to Dominic Rossi. To the Chicago Chamber of Commerce, Dominic was a notoriously ruthless, fiercely private billionaire who had cornered the Midwest's shipping and real estate markets. To Alex, he was the terrifying, broad-shouldered man who drank his scotch neat, never raised his voice, and occasionally came into the office with bruised knuckles and a bespoke suit that smelled faintly of copper and gunpowder. Alex was not naive. She handled the special ledgers. She knew exactly what the Rossi family syndicate was, and she knew that turning a blind eye was the only reason she was paid a mid-six-figure salary. Dominic was a man wrapped in lethal, quiet control. He was 34, with dark, heavily lashed eyes and a jawline that looked like it had been chiseled from granite. He terrified the entire building, but with Alex, he was a different creature entirely. He demanded her coffee, her scheduling, and her physical presence in his office with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. If she was out sick, the entire executive floor braced for a volcanic eruption. Yet Alex assumed his reliance on her was purely functional. Women who looked like her, soft, heavy, with thick arms and a double chin when she laughed, were not the romantic leads in the lives of men who looked like Dominic Rossi. It was a torrential Friday afternoon in late October. The rain was lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office, casting long, grey shadows across the Italian leather sofas. Alex sat at her mahogany desk just outside Dominic's inner sanctum, her fingers flying across her mechanical keyboard as she audited the week's cargo manifests from the Navy Pier warehouses. Her phone buzzed. She had connected her personal phone to her desktop monitor to easily manage her two-factor authentications. A green text message bubble popped up in the upper right corner of her 27-inch screen. "Wyatt Henderson, got us a table at the Velvet Lounge for 8. Wear that dark red lipstick you used to wear. Can't wait to kiss you tonight. Pen." Alex's heart did a complicated, anxious flutter. Wyatt was an old flame from her early 20s, a charming, slick-talking mortgage broker who had unceremoniously dumped her 5 years ago, heavily implying that her weight gain was the reason. For 5 years, she had carried the humiliation of that rejection. But 3 weeks ago, he had suddenly slid back into her direct messages, apologizing profusely, claiming he had grown up and realized what a massive mistake he had made. He had been relentless in his pursuit. Despite her thick armor of self-esteem, Alex was human. The attention from a conventionally attractive man from her past felt like a soothing balm on an old, ugly scar. She had spent the last 3 nights agonizing over what to wear, finally settling on a velvet wrap dress that cinched her waist and highlighted her heavy chest. She smiled softly at the screen, reaching for her mouse to close the notification. She didn't hear the heavy, measured footsteps until a massive, tailored chest was brushing against the back of her ergonomic mesh chair. The scent of bergamot, expensive tobacco, and rain washed over her. Dominic was standing directly behind her. He was so close that she could feel the heat radiating from his 6'3" frame, searing through the silk of her blouse. Alex froze. Her hand hovered over the mouse. Dominic didn't speak. The silence in the office stretched, thick and suffocating. His gaze was locked on the screen, fixed squarely on Wyatt's message. Alex watched the reflection of his face in the darkened glass of her monitor. His expression was a terrifying void, utterly devoid of emotion, but his jaw was ticking with such violence she thought his teeth might shatter. "Mr. Rossi," Alex murmured, her voice sounding entirely too thin. She quickly clicked the notification away. "I have the finalized peer reports. The union bosses agreed to your adjusted terms." Dominic's large, calloused hand came down to rest on the edge of her desk, gripping the wood. His knuckles slowly turned a stark bone white. "Who?" Dominic said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp that seemed to vibrate in Alex's chest. "Is Wyatt Henderson?" Alex blinked, a flush of embarrassment rising up her thick neck to stain her cheeks. "Just an old friend, sir. We're catching up tonight." "An old friend." Dominic repeated the words slowly, rolling them around in his mouth as if they tasted like poison. "An old friend who wants to kiss you." "That is personal, Mr. Rossi," Alex said, attempting to summon her professional boundaries. She adjusted her posture, pulling her shoulders back, her heavy breasts lifting with the deep breath she took. Dominic's dark eyes flicked down to her chest in the reflection of the monitor, lingering there for a fraction of a second before returning to her eyes. "Cancel it," Dominic ordered softly. Alex spun her chair around to face him. He was towering over her, casting her entirely in his shadow. "Excuse me." "You heard me, Alex. Cancel it." He straightened up, adjusting the cuffs of his Tom Ford suit. "The warehouse in the South Side has a discrepancy in the manifest. 2 crates of some imports are unaccounted for. We are staying late tonight to trace the routing numbers." Alex stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, it's 4:45 on a Friday. The warehouse managers have already gone home. I can pull the routing numbers first thing on Monday morning." "I don't pay you to work on Monday mornings. I pay you to work when I tell you to work," Dominic replied coldly, walking toward his inner office door. He paused, looking back over his broad shoulder. His eyes were dark, fathomless pools. "Order dinner to the office. We will be here for a while." Alex felt a flare of genuine anger. She was a dedicated employee, but she was not his slave. More importantly, she knew Dominic. He possessed a terrifying, eidetic memory. He never lost shipments. He didn't have discrepancies. This was a fabrication, a blatant power play. She looked down at her phone, at Wyatt's message. For once in her life, she wanted to feel desired. She wanted to sit in a dimly lit lounge and have a man tell her she was beautiful. "No," Alex said. The single word echoed in the cavernous office. Dominic stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around, slowly, the lethal grace of a predator stalking its prey, evident in every micro-movement. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice dropping into a register that made the hairs on Alex's arms stand at attention. Alex swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. She stood up. The physical reality of her body meant she moved with a deliberate, grounded weight, her thick thighs brushing together under her skirt. At 5'6", she still had to crane her neck to meet his gaze. "I said no, Dominic," she said, deliberately dropping his title. "I have worked 70 hours this week. I handled the fallout from the FBI raid on the trucking subsidiary. I reconciled the accounts for the offshore shell companies. I have done my job flawlessly. Tonight, I have plans." Dominic stepped toward her. Alex held her ground, refusing to shrink back, even as her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. "You think I care about your plans?" he murmured, stopping mere inches from her. He looked down at her. His gaze didn't hold the usual disgust or dismissal she was used to from men in this city. It held a dark, burning hunger that confused and terrified her. He looked at her soft, round face, her full pink lips, and the heavy swell of her hips, as if he wanted to devour her whole. "You think I'm going to let you walk out of this building to go meet some pathetic, desperate loser in a cheap suit?" Alex gasped. "You don't even know him. Wyatt Henderson," Dominic interrupted, his tone laced with venomous contempt. 32 years old, drives a leased 2022 BMW 3 Series he's 3 months behind on. Works at a mid-level mortgage firm on LaSalle Street. Lives in a studio apartment in Logan Square. And most importantly, is currently underwater to the tune of $250,000 to a very unsavory underground sportsbook. Alex's anger vanished, replaced by a sudden, icy wave of shock. The blood drained from her face. She leaned back against her desk for support, the heavy wood pressing into her lower back. How do you know that?" "Because," Dominic said, stepping perfectly into her space, caging her against the desk by placing a large hand on the wood on either side of her wide hips. "That sportsbook is run by the Rossi Syndicate. He owes me money, Alex." The air in the room felt too thin to breathe. Alex stared up at her boss, the pieces rapidly falling into place. The sudden reappearance, the relentless flattery, the desperate push to reconnect after 5 years of absolute silence. Wyatt didn't want her. He hadn't seen the error of his ways. He knew she worked for Dominic Rossi. He knows who I work for," Alex whispered, the horrific humiliation crashing over her in a suffocating wave. She felt a burning sting behind her eyes, the familiar aching reality of being the fat girl targeted for a joke or a scam settling heavily in her chest. "Of course he does," Dominic said, his voice softening just a fraction, losing its lethal edge. He lifted one hand from the desk and brushed a stray lock of brown hair behind her ear. His knuckles grazed her soft, plush cheek. 3 days ago, my men paid him a visit and broke 2 of his fingers to remind him of his debt. He begged for a week. He said he had an in with the boss's inner circle. He said he was going to manipulate the fat, lonely secretary into transferring the funds from the corporate slush accounts to save his miserable life. The tears spilled over before Alex could stop them. They tracked hot and fast down her cheeks. "Stop!" she choked out, trying to push him away, but his chest was like a brick wall. She felt utterly exposed, her deepest insecurities laid bare on the mahogany desk. "Just stop. Let me go." "I am not going to let you go," Dominic said fiercely, his hands gripping her thick waist, his long fingers digging possessively into the softness of her sides. "I am going to kill him for thinking he could use you, for thinking you were some desperate, lonely woman he could manipulate. And most of all, for thinking he had the right to put his pathetic lips anywhere near you." Alex looked up through her tears, her chest heaving, brushing against his lapels. "Why do you care? You've got what you wanted. You stopped him from stealing your money. Just fire me and let me go home." Dominic let out a harsh, breathless laugh. He leaned down, his lips brushing the shell of her ear, sending a violent shiver down her spine. "You think this is about the money?" Penny, he whispered, his hot breath dancing across her skin. I make $250,000 while I sleep. I don't give a damn about the money. I care that another man thought he could touch what belongs to me. Alex froze, her breath catching in her throat. I don't belong to you. I am your employee. Dominic pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. The mask was completely gone now. The ruthless, untouchable mafia boss was completely stripped away, revealing a man absolutely consumed by obsession. You have belonged to me since the day you walked into this office 3 years ago, wearing that grey suit that hugged your hips and told me to my face that my filing system was garbage, Dominic growled, his gaze dropping to her mouth. You think I don't see you? I see every single man who looks at you in this building. I've fired 4 executives just because they looked at your curves with disrespect. You are a queen, Alex. A gorgeous, heavy, perfect queen. And I have spent 3 years keeping my hands to myself because I didn't want to terrify you. But the second I saw that text message, he trailed off, his jaw clenching as he stared at her trembling lips. The second I saw another man thought he could claim you, I lost my damn mind. Dominic closed the remaining distance between them. There was no hesitation, no gentle asking of permission. He crashed his mouth down onto hers. The kiss was an absolute cataclysm. Dominic's lips were bruising, demanding, and tasted sharply of dark whiskey, expensive mint, and raw, unfiltered possession. Alex had spent her entire adult life navigating the world trying to take up less space, perpetually apologizing for the heavy curve of her stomach, the broadness of her shoulders, and the thick, dimpled flesh of her thighs. She had conditioned herself to believe that a body like hers was meant to be hidden beneath tailored blazers and shapewear, never to be fiercely desired. But Dominic Rossi did not just tolerate her size. He worshipped it. His massive, calloused palms slid down from her waist, grabbing the heavy, plush swells of her hips and pulling her flush against his hard, heavily muscled frame. Alex gasped against his mouth, her hands instinctively coming up to brace against his chest, but her fingers curled into the expensive lapels of his custom Zegna suit instead. She felt the rigid, undeniable proof of his desire pressing into her soft stomach through the fabric of her skirt, sending a hot, terrifying jolt of electricity straight down her spine. Dominic's tongue swept into her mouth, tasting, claiming, utterly dominating. He kissed her like a man who had been starving in a desert for 3 years and had finally found a vital source of water. Alex melted against him, her substantial weight entirely supported by his unyielding strength. For the first time in her life, she felt small, protected, and fiercely, terrifyingly wanted. When he finally pulled away, they were both breathing heavily. Alex's chest heaved, her face flushed a deep crimson. She stared up into his dark, obsidian eyes, her world completely tilted off its axis. "Dominic," she breathed, her voice trembling. You are my boss. This is madness. You just told me a man from my past is trying to use me to steal from a mafia syndicate. And now you are kissing me." "I am claiming you," Dominic corrected smoothly, his thumbs drawing slow, deliberate circles against her waist. "And Wyatt Henderson is not just a desperate gambler trying to clear his debt. That is simply the lie he told my enforcers when they broke his fingers." Alex blinked, the romantic haze shattering as the cold, harsh reality of Dominic's criminal empire crashed back into the room. "What do you mean? What else is there?" Dominic stepped back, though he kept one hand firmly wrapped around her wrist, anchoring her to him. He walked over to his massive mahogany desk and pressed a button on the intercom. "Lorenzo, bring the garbage up to the penthouse." "Copy that, boss," a gruff voice crackled through the speaker. Dominic turned back to Alex, his expression hardening into the terrifying, ruthless mask of the boss of the Rossi syndicate. Wyatt didn't just rack up $250,000 in debt by accident. He is working for the O'Banion crew on the South Side. They deliberately pushed him into debt at my sports books so they could use his leverage. They knew he had a connection to you. They instructed him to reconnect with you, romance you, and get you to install a mirrored drive into this very computer. He pointed to her glowing monitor. They wanted access to the offshore routing numbers you manage. Wyatt was going to slip a flash drive into your purse tonight at the Velvet Lounge, and the O'Banion crew was going to drain $300 million from our accounts by Monday morning. Alex felt the blood drain from her face. Her knees suddenly felt like they were made of water. She reached blindly for the edge of her desk to steady herself. Her heavy breasts rose and fell with rapid, shallow breaths. He was going to wiretap my computer. He was using me for corporate espionage. He was trying to use you to dismantle my empire, Dominic said, stepping forward to catch her elbows, steadying her. He looked at you, Alex, and he didn't see a beautiful, intelligent woman. He saw a target. He saw someone he thought was desperate enough for affection that she would be blind to his manipulation. The door to the penthouse suddenly chimed, the heavy security locks disengaging with a loud metallic clack. The heavy oak doors swung open, and Lorenzo, a towering brute of a man with a scarred jawline and a tailored black suit, walked in. He was dragging Wyatt Henderson by the collar of his jacket. Wyatt looked terrible. He was completely soaked from the Chicago rain, his cheap grey suit ruined and plastered to his thin frame. His right hand was heavily bandaged, two of his fingers awkwardly splintered. His face was pale, his eyes whittle with stark, unadulterated terror. He looked absolutely nothing like the confident, slick-talking man who had broken Alex's heart 5 years ago, nor the charming suitor who had been blowing up her phone all week. Lorenzo shoved Wyatt forward, sending him stumbling onto the expensive Persian rug in the center of the office. Wyatt fell to his knees, clutching his injured hand against his chest. "Mr. Rossi," Wyatt whimpered, looking up at Dominic with pathetic, pleading eyes. "Please. I swear to God, I wasn't going to do it. The O'Banions forced me. They threatened to kill my mother. I just wanted to pay my debt." Dominic didn't even look at Wyatt. His dark eyes remained entirely fixed on Alex. He reached out, gently cupping her soft, round cheek, his thumb brushing away a stray tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Look at him, Alex," Dominic ordered softly. "Look at the man who thought you were nothing more than a fat, pathetic stepping stone. Look at how small he is." Alex slowly turned her head. She looked at Wyatt, kneeling on the floor, trembling like a wet dog. Wyatt's eyes darted to Alex. For a fraction of a second, his terror was replaced by a desperate, manipulative hope. "Pen. Pen, baby, please. You know me. We used to mean something to each other. Tell him. Tell him I'm a good guy. Please, Pen, I just wanted to take you to dinner. You look so beautiful. Have you lost weight?" The blatant, desperate lie hit Alex like a physical blow, but this time it didn't hurt. Instead, a sudden, blinding flash of absolute rage ignited in her chest. He was still trying to play her. Even kneeling in a Mafia boss's office, facing his own demise, Wyatt Henderson still thought she was stupid enough to fall for a crumb of fake validation about her body. Alex did not cry. She did not shrink back. Instead, she stood up straighter. She felt the heavy, substantial weight of her body, the thick thighs that supported her, the broad hips that took up space, and the brilliant, sharp mind that had kept a massive criminal enterprise running flawlessly for 3 years. She walked slowly around her desk. Her sensible black heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. Lorenzo took a subtle step back, crossing his massive arms over his chest, a smirk playing on his scarred lips. Alex stopped right in front of Wyatt. She looked down at him. "You have not changed at all, Wyatt," Alex said. Her voice was eerily calm, echoing in the cavernous office. "You always thought you were the smartest person in the room. You dumped me 5 years ago because you said my weight was an embarrassment to your brand. And now you come crawling back, thinking that because I am fat, I must be completely starved for male attention. You thought I would be so blindingly grateful that a thin, conventionally attractive man was buying me a drink that I would betray the most dangerous man in Chicago." "Alex, no." "That is not true," Wyatt stammered. Smack. The sound of Alex striking Wyatt across the cheek with her open palm echoed like a gunshot. The force of the blow, fueled by years of pent-up humiliation and heartbreak, sent Wyatt sprawling sideways onto the expensive rug. He cried out, clutching his face. His lip instantly split and welled with dark blood. Alex shook her stinging hand, staring down at him with absolute disgust. "Do not interrupt me." Dominic let out a low, dark chuckle from the shadows near the desk. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated pride. "You thought I was weak," Alex continued, taking another step toward the cowering man. "But I manage the finances for the Rossi family. I know how to disappear money, and I know how to disappear people. I am the reason this syndicate has not been audited by the government in 3 years. I hold the keys to this entire empire, and you thought you could manipulate me with a reservation at a lounge and a cheap compliment." She crouched down, despite the tight fabric of her skirt, grabbing Wyatt by the lapels of his soaked suit. She pulled his terrified face close to hers. "You owe my boss $250,000, Alex whispered. Her voice was laced with pure venom. "And because you tried to use me, I am going to make sure the interest rate on that debt triples by Monday morning. You will be paying Dominic Rossi for the rest of your miserable, pathetic life. If you ever contact me again, if you ever look at me again, I will personally sign the authorization for Lorenzo to take you out to the warehouses and break every single bone in your body. Do you understand me?" Wyatt nodded frantically, tears streaming down his bruised face. His breath hitched in pure terror. Yes, Alex. I understand. I am sorry. I am so sorry." Alex released him, standing back up and smoothing down her skirt with dignified precision. She turned to Lorenzo. "Get him out of my office. He is ruining the rug." "With pleasure, boss," Lorenzo grinned. He hauled Wyatt by the collar and dragged the sobbing man out of the penthouse. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind them, leaving Alex and Dominic alone in the echoing silence. Alex stood in the center of the room. Her chest heaved. The adrenaline was slowly beginning to drain from her system. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had never struck a person in her life. She had never spoken with such vicious, unyielding authority. She turned to face Dominic. He was leaning against the mahogany desk, his arms crossed over his massive chest, staring at her with an expression of absolute reverence. The dark, predatory hunger in his eyes had intensified tenfold. He was not looking at an executive assistant. He was looking at a queen. "That," Dominic murmured, his voice a low, gravelly vibration that sent shivers down her spine, was the most magnificent thing I have ever witnessed. Alex suddenly felt entirely self-conscious. The reality of what she had just done crashed over her. She crossed her arms over her stomach, a defensive habit to hide her curves. I lost my temper. I should not have hit him. I am just a secretary. Dominic closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He reached out, gently prying her arms away from her stomach. He took her hands in his, lifting them to his mouth and pressing a reverent kiss to her knuckles. "You are not just a secretary, Alex," Dominic said fiercely, his dark eyes burning into hers. "You are the absolute beating heart of my empire. You are brilliant. You are ruthless. And you are the most breathtakingly beautiful woman I have ever known." "Dominic, please," Alex whispered, fresh tears pricking her eyes. "I know what I look like. I know I am heavy. I know I do not fit into the world of billionaires. You do not have to pretend." Dominic dropped her hands and stepped closer. "I am a man who commands thousands. I own half the real estate here. I always take exactly what I want. And I truly want you, my beautiful queen. You are my undisputed empress forever." Wow, what an explosive and deeply satisfying finale. Dominic finally laid his entire empire at Alex's feet, proving that true power is recognizing the brilliant, beautiful queen standing right in front of you. Did you love seeing Alex take charge and Wyatt get exactly what he deserved? If you want more intense, dramatic romance stories with massive plot twists, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel right now.